Thank you for coming today to our webinar, 6 Ways to Make People Like You. My name is Roxana Olaru, and I am the coordinator for admissions and recruitment at ESCP for the Bachelor. So today we are going to speak with 3 lovely people, and I'm going to introduce them so you know a little bit more about them. The first person is our MIM graduate and expert in the field, Sophie Vurpillot, with 17 years of experience working as a consultant and coach, and also she's also an entrepreneur, and she has 2 companies through which she actually empowers and helps leaders of today and tomorrow and their organizations. So she will be sharing with us all her tips and wisdom in the area of networking. The second person we have today is a student from the ESCP. It's Hugo de Bailliencourt. He has a lot of international experience, given that he's lived in 8 different countries, and his passions are AI and education. And the third person we're going to see giving her tips and experience in the area of networking is Sophia Goeppinger, who is also a 3rd-year student. She's a natural born leader, and she is also interested in the area of networking, and she's always a very passionate participant in all the UN activities at our school. Before we go any further, I would like to make a small observation. You can ask us any questions at any time, and we will be happy to answer them in the section questions. So don't forget to raise up any points that you may have. So that's all from me, and I'm going to actually let Sophie share with us her wonderful experience and expertise. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Roxana. So I'm Sophie Vurpillot, and I am here so I'm very excited to be here, first of all, and I'm here to share with you what I've been learning over the past 17 years, working in countries like, Brazil, Chile, Spain, Germany, the US, and both in the corporate world. I worked in the consulting area, Deloitte, and then in the financial industry in New York City, in Standard & Poor's, and in Society Generale, and later on became an entrepreneur. So really learning the best of both worlds. And I'm here really to share with you what I've been learning about, human drivers that truly are the same everywhere, meaning that the same things move us to act. And that's it. I'm going to share my screen right now. Just give me a second. All right, so here we're going to talk about building your professional success, and building this professional network really happens, one relationship at a time. So we're going to focus on building deep and meaningful relationships. So before we start, we would like to consult you and ask you about your current perception, of networking. So we would like to do a quick poll with you. And actually, Tanya, I don't have access to the poll right now, unfortunately. But
Okay,
maybe in the meantime, that would be great. Thank you. Can you guys see the poll?
Yes, I mean, we can. Yeah.
You can? Okay, excellent. Yes. So we'll leave you a few seconds so you can tell us what you think about networking today. All right, do we have the results already?
Yes, so Sophie, I'm going to tell you a little bit what the students answered. So 6% said, well, 0% time consuming, so nobody considers it to be time consuming, 0% boring, 6% stressful, 35% critical to success, and 59% exciting.
Okay. Well, that's a nice view. Actually, I'm very excited. So you know, usually when talking to people, and especially younger people, you know, we're hearing a lot of things, you know, and we're here really to kill the myth, being, for example, that, you know, oh, I'm an introvert, so I will never be successful, you know, at networking, or it's going to take a lot of my time, you know, with very limited results, or you know, networking is just about being self-serving and greedy and asking people for help and favors. And we're going to address all these points, but I'm happy to see that you're excited to be here actually, and by the challenge. And like you, I agree. I also believe that, you know, networking and building a strong professional network is very, very foundational to professional success. So as important as, you know, knowing yourself or learning constantly, or your personal image. And so this is why we decided to have this theme today, and to cover this theme today. And, you know, success in life is basically the sum of the people that you meet and what you create together. So this is how paramount this subject is. And when I first started my career, you know, that was actually in New York City, I thought that networking was about this, you know, it was about going to some of these events where, you know, random people with very diverse backgrounds just meet and exchange business cards and do their pitches. And, you know, going to a lot of events like this, I realized that it actually added very little value. And I thought there would be probably much more to it, you know. And continuing over the course of the following years, what I've been learning is that networking actually looks more like that. You know, it's about, you know, doing activities and building things and projects with people and getting to know them more, you know, as you do it. There's a picture actually that was taken at ESCP at the top left, and that was taken as I was the jury on a startup competition. So, you know, meaning like-minded mentors and students who are really into entrepreneurship. There's other pictures taken in Chile and in China, also about entrepreneurship forums and empowering the youth. And to me, really, that is networking. And this is a much, much more joyful process, as you can see. And truly, the most effective networking is that kind of setup. You know, this is one-on-one interactions, coffee times, lunches and meals, where you go, you know, you spend a solid hour with someone and you know more about them, and you discuss about their interests and what they do and what their challenges are. And so I don't know already if maybe Hugo or Sophia want to interject now and share a little bit about their experience having been through the bachelor.
Absolutely. So just to give you guys a clear image, basically, of what I was expecting to go through at EACP, was really to leverage that position of networking. So obviously, we're going to go into more the mentality of hunting and farming, the next slide, but it was more a mentality of hunting, right? So who were my targets? Who were the people I could gain the most from? And then basically selecting those individuals, and maybe even, you know, faking interest in whatever they were doing, which is not authentic, obviously, and people can really feel that, and we're going to talk more about that. But I was very much goal oriented, and this has changed like really widely over time, and I'm sure for Sophia maybe some in some ways as well.
For me, for example, when I started with ECP, I didn't actually know what networking is. So I didn't even have LinkedIn. I didn't know for what it is useful. So I learned all that actually at ECP, which was super useful. And I also learned throughout the years that networking is actually an attitude. So it's maybe you meet a person and you don't think directly that this person is useful for you now. But for example, what happened with me last year, I met a person, and this year, throughout keeping the contact, I actually got an internship. So you have to think long term about networking, not just be short-sighted and think, okay, maybe I don't need the person now. I have my internship already, so why should I actually care? So it's about networking every single day.
Mm-hmm. You know, and I agree with this. And exactly, networking is not about, you know, hunting people and trying to get a special, you know, favor. Instead, it's really a longer term process. It's about, building relationships. And as you know, relationships take time. And I really, really like this image, that networking is about farming. Again, it's a process. It's something that you need to build. It's something that takes time. And it's something that also, you keep, nurturing somehow. You have to keep nurturing this network. And you have to be very considerate actually when you do this, both at the moment when you start building a relationship with someone and as you go along the way. And not do some things that are very, very awkward, such as asking for referral recommendations, from people that hardly know you, for example. And really the spirit here is actually to be focused on contribution, and it's a generosity act. So basically, it's not about counting points. It's not about, I received these services, I have to return it, or the contrary. And the focus is really on, start giving. And it's like a karma law, no? You start giving and it just keeps, coming back, except that it just gets, bigger and bigger with time. So that is really the spirit and the philosophy that will take you, a long way. And as you can guess, going through this process, you see the stress is just gone because you're not focused on just asking things from people. You're here also to contribute. And obviously that makes you feel much better about yourself,
Yeah, of course. And I would also add that the more you contribute, the more also you get your name out of there, the more comfortable you get with the people around you, and the more easier it gets to spot people, their interests, understand where they're coming from, and then try and understand the level that they're at. Maybe put yourself in their shoes. And once you get to that level, once you get more comfortable, then it just gets really easy to connect with people. So just to give an example, like if you start collecting business cards, for example, a lot of them just get thrown away or they end up not being utilized. So the first thing I would do for just to give you guys a tip is just immediately look at if that person has a LinkedIn. And if you don't have a LinkedIn, please create a LinkedIn. It's going to be extremely important for you, even if you do enter business school or not, just for any type of connection. And then through that, you can look at their interests, maybe look at what they're following, which pages, etc. And then you can generate more attraction through that, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. So LinkedIn is the best tool today. Actually, it is the best online networking tool, the best way to portray yourself, but also to learn about people. And I want also to say something about business cards, and I could not agree more with you. Actually, go about digitalizing what you receive, and also really you should always focus on when you talk to someone and feel like the conversation is actually interesting, and you want to keep in touch with this person. You should always keep ownership on collecting these business cards, rather than just giving yours away and waiting for this person to get back to you, because this way you make sure that this is actually happening because this is in your hands, right? So make sure that you collect the business cards and you follow up diligently, the day after, a couple of days after, so people actually still remember you. So we talked about this concept of farming and building relationships, and obviously you want to build trustful relationships, right? Because this is about working together, creating things together. And I really, really love this. This is called the equation of trust, no? That shows that, you build your trust by, trust among other people by being credible, but also reliable. And that means that, when you commit, you actually do what you said you would be doing. So if you say, I'm going to get back to you in a couple of days, actually do get back to people in 48 hours, for example. And this equation also tells us that, the more you seem to serve your own interests, the less you're going to inspire trust in the other person. So just a few things to have in mind when you interact with others. And again, it gets back to the more you're here to listen, the more you're here to learn, the more you're here to connect, and the less you're here to just ask for a favor, the more trust you're going to build, and the most likely you're going to be to build a positive and longer term relationship. I don't know if anybody wants to comment.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with you there, Sophie. I'm sure you also would talk about the way people present themselves. So we're going to go more into that later. But for now, I would say one huge aspect of networking is just the energy. So the way you present yourself. And so going back to the authenticity, obviously the trust, credibility, etc., is also built on your image and how you present yourself to others. So if you go in, with very low energy, very like depressed attitude, and which is, you can have that, you can have bad days, but the way when you're presenting yourself, you have to make sure that you're aware of these things. And so, posture, energy going in, excitement, all these things are really, really crucial. And actually, these are things that have landed me universities or jobs in the past. So I would really put a heavy emphasis on this because people, they catch on to that.
I would
And
maybe
I think, Sophia,
also, I wanted to add something. In general, we are talking here about a business setting, but this applies also to the personal setting. And it's also with this trust equation, because even on a personal level, this person, you might meet the person in the future, or it would be useful, the person might be useful in the future in a business setting. So this does not only apply for the business world, but in any setting you are actually in.
Yeah.
That's just what I wanted to add.
True. And your network is not, there's not a professional network and a personal network as like two words that would not talk to each other, that would be completely separate, right? And I think that what we've all experienced in this call is that, at the end of the day, everything gets really mixed. And it's okay, really, because, if you appreciate people that you work with, they naturally become your friends. And if you have friends that share your values and your ambitions, etc., it's very natural to work together. So again, getting rid of this pre-made idea that you cannot mix the both worlds is already a huge step, in terms of mindset. So a bit provocatively, now we call this this webinar the 6 ways to make people like you, because again, networking is about building relationships. So it's about, again, from the first moment you meet, creating some kind of connection, no? And we believe that those are the factors that contribute to this likability. That means that people will want to follow up and meet again with you and start, exploring a longer term, kind of partnership, no, or friendship.
Sorry, Sophie, to interrupt you. We have a first question.
Great.
They're asking if building a network is necessary even though I'm still in high school. That's one of the questions they asked.
Yes, very good question.
What do you think?
Yes, I will say the sooner, the earlier, the better. There is no moment you should not just start, at the moment you join business school, or the sooner you have this, the better. And also you will train all those techniques that will be useful for the rest of your life, Again, there might be people in your surroundings, there might be even people in your family, there might be people like friends and friends of friends, and those friendships, they stay with you your whole life, some of them at least. And today I am actually still doing business with, I would say, more like friends that I started meeting maybe at ESCP, not so much before. But it could have been, it may as well have been, that some people from earlier in my life would still be in my life and I would want to work with them, So there's no age to get started again.
Maybe I can add there something, because when I actually finished high school, I did a gap year in South America and I wanted to do an internship, but it's super hard. If you just finished high school, no one wants to take you because you haven't studied anything, especially if you want to do something in economics, like in the economy. But basically through asking around and everything, I met a guy and I kept like the relationship and the connection. And in the end, he made it possible that I could do an internship for 2 months in Ecuador. So it's never too early actually to build your network, because you will use it always, like no matter for what. If you want to do a language course somewhere and you need a place to sleep at, or it doesn't always have to be this professional setting, like also what we said before, this personal environment that that might help you then as well. Like it's just on a different level. You're not in business school yet, but you can use it on differently.
Yep, and I would definitely add that just to give you guys a little perspective on the United States as well. Over there, at least East Coast, so New York, Miami, Boston, even though they're completely different environments in terms of like the weather and the people, everybody is networking, even from high school, even people from middle school know each other. And even when you're not in a professional or business setting or even thinking about that at all, it's just networking in even your social circles early on, super important, and it helps you practice as well, which is great.
We have another question. Sorry, it's like I'm gonna read them as they come. So the question is from Lucia. She's asking, do you encourage seeking internships abroad? I guess it's through networking. Can you get to that point where you're getting internships abroad?
Yes.
So maybe she's in, okay, so let's just take it from a broad perspective. I think if I may, yeah, for sure. 100%. It obviously depends on what your goals are. If you are looking for more international experience, and if you're looking for something completely different, which most people, I would recommend them to have at least that one experience like this, 100% leverage in a smart way. Of course, it's not about pushing people, like we said, it's more about developing the network in a really smart way and making sure your first impressions are good. But I would totally recommend, getting an internship abroad if you can.
I would even argue that this is your best shot actually to get an internship abroad, through your personal network, through person who know you and value you and know that you're going to be doing a good job at it, plus gaining an experience abroad as soon as you can is highly, highly recommended. Personally, I did my first internship abroad at the age of 18, actually. And that was through my personal network, now that I think about it, So absolutely, big yes. All right, so today we wanted to communicate with you the 6 ways to make people like you. No, that was the theme. And first, we believe it's essential, but absolutely essential to make a great impression. And Hugo already touched on it. So making a great impression, it's, everywhere from, smiling. That's essential, actually. Smiling the first moment somebody meets you, and also the quality of your handshake, the body language. If your body doesn't speak the same way as your smile does, then you're not conveying this kind of authenticity that's gonna make a good first impression. And it is, according to studies, it is said that actually if the first impression is not that great, it takes about 20 interactions after that to fix it. So this is the importance of the first impression, because those first impressions that happens literally in milliseconds, they stick. So again, it goes back to smiling, looking people in the eye, and having some kind of control of your body language to be open and transparent. And I think, Hugo, you have something to say now about first impressions. I know you believe also that this is essential.
I completely agree with you in that point. Like in most points, but first impressions, guys, are the most crucial part, I would say, of any networking start. So be it in a professional setting, even in a non-professional setting, a lot of these people that you're going to interact with, for example, even friends, and they're going to get to know you and all these things, but first impressions are key. So it's about, like you said, body language and posture, very important. And the smile says a lot about the person, and the handshake, sorry. And also, again, the energy, that's something that I would emphasize on, because that has allowed me to really impress people and maybe get a higher first impression, which is then very hard to take away or change, as you mentioned. And also even the dress code. So obviously, that's just the simple things you guys will for sure remember about, if you're in a professional setting, then dress well, maybe a tie or business casual. These things really, they're a small thing you can do to help the first impressions.
And about dress code, this is the most important thing, is to make sure it fits the culture, especially if you go to a company. If you go, to a startup, obviously you don't go with a tie and the whole attire, and vice versa. If you go to a bank or a consulting company, then you have to make sure that you meet the highest standards. So it's about adapting also, right? You have
Yeah.
you have a funny
Yeah,
story about
I
it?
have just a funny story. My first internship, actually, which I got thanks to also Sophie, by the way. The interview was with the CEO, and he was very informal. So he was summertime, very informal, but he told me the dress code was business casual / formal. And I was like, okay. So I came to the office in jackets, but he told me no tie was necessary. And I came to the office in a nice almost suit, no tie. And I was the only one in a suit, and everybody else was in shorts basically. And he completely forgot to tell me that the dress code was different, and that was just for the interview. He would rather see me in a dress code. So it was you have to catch that on really quickly. But these things can happen, so it's okay.
Yeah, yeah. I would say and the smile beats the attire. The most important is really your attitude. Yeah, even if you mess up a little bit with with your choice of what you're wearing, the most important is really how you act and the authenticity that you bring into this first interaction, which is our second point. Be yourself. Don't try to impress. Don't try to be somebody that you're not, because at the end of the day, we are intuitive. Human beings are intuitive, and if something is off, they will spot it. And if they spot that something is not right, they will not want to engage more with you. That's simple. So being yourself and accepting who you are is actually one of the best things that you can do when it comes to building relationships. And to continue on the same trend, the same kind of ideas, it's about creating genuine, sincere, human connections. And to do so, it's about really listening to the other person, what they have to say, to ask questions, that show that you're interested in what they're saying. It's about seeking points to connect. Is it that you grew up in the same country or even the same city? Is it that you attended the same school? When you meet people in the future from ESCP, is it that you share the same kind of interests? You're both completely fanatic about AI, for example. So those are great themes to connect. So again, creating genuine, sincere human connections. And I would also argue creating, deep connections. And the more you talk about really who a person is and not just what they do, but really who they are, what they believe in, what are their values, this is what, paves the way, what creates the conditions to create a very positive and sincere human connection. And then we have, the point of listening actively. So when we talk about active listening, so this is really about, asking questions that are not pre-made. It's based on what the person tells you. You're really trying to understand and to go to the bottom of what they say, and again, this is about demonstrating and showing true interest. And usually this is one of the best things that you can do to someone, is actually to spend the time and to listen to them, which is something that we don't do that often, unfortunately. And when you talk, the subject, if you approach a discussion just talking about what you want, that's not going to be very effective. People love to talk about what they want, first of all. And second, if you look for a job, for example, imagine you write, some kind of letter, cover letter, or an email. And in this letter, all you speak about is that you're going to be available for 2 months in the summer. And this is what you're looking for, the kind of internship that you're looking for. This is not going to be a very effective strategy. And I happen to also work in recruiting as a headhunter. And what I can assure you is that what you want to do instead is to focus on, this is the kind of value that I can bring. I am like this and I'm like that, and I have some knowledge about this. We don't need to speak about an expertise. It's more an attitude at this stage that you can have. Oh, and by the way, I will be available for 2 months this summer. That is much, much more interesting as an approach, And I think that Hugo and Sophia will have something to say now regarding the previous internship searches, to illustrate that as well. How do you advertise yourself when you're looking for a job?
I don't know if Sophia wants to go first.
Okay. So in general, I think it's also part of networking is your CV, for example. When like the first step, if you want to get an internship, for example, either you have the network already, which can help you. And normally what you do if you have the network, you need to send them your CV. So the most important thing is that your CV is perfect, so that you're interesting, and not that you have there something like that you have something special in there where people are like, oh, I really want to meet this person. Even if it's, for example, if you participated in a song contest and you go really far, you don't need to mention it if you dropped out the first round. But if you get actually really far, it's worth mentioning on the CV because people want to get to know you. So I think even if you have the network, then they always want to have your CV, for example. And normally through this and your network, you are able to get an interview, for example. And there again, what all these things that we mentioned here, that making the first impression, that you're authentic, that you be yourself, and then it should work out. Like, I think for me, for example, when I'm doing interviews, it's always the most important thing, like the first impression, that you're energetic, that you're enthusiastic about the thing that you actually, the internship that you're seeking, and that you're being yourself and not try to be someone else who's awesome. So for example, I'm not the best person in maths, so I'm not telling them, even though in the internship there might be loads of numbers, I'm not telling them, oh, I love maths, I'm so good at it, I will ace it. No, just be yourself. There are so many other facets to you that you can actually leverage on.
And authenticity come also with unicity. No, the more authentic you are, the more unique your profile is, and it's actually very, very interesting to stand out in some ways, you know, and to stand out not in the way you look, but more in what you say and how you say it, and the experiences that you have had before, you know, and that's going to make you very attractive to companies.
Yes, I totally agree. In my case, one example that I could give is that I was looking for entrepreneurship projects and things that had involved this. And actually, ESCP has a Blue Factory Start program, it's called. And they basically take you through different workshops that you do with actual entrepreneurs and people who help you in your pitches and to really fan out your ideas and give you just their opinion, because these are people who are serial entrepreneurs. So they've already done tons of companies and things like this. And one of these so-called entrepreneurs gave us some free office space for us to do a workshop, but he wasn't part of it. And so he just presented who his company was, and I thought that was extremely interesting. And so I decided, okay, well, why not just network and actually go talk to this person? And it turns out that we were extremely interested in the same topic of artificial intelligence and also involving education. And we got to know each other more and more, and it was really funny. And because after quite a while, I asked for an internship, and I got an interview with the HR woman. Everything went well, and she told me, okay, now escalate it to the CEO. And when I met the CEO, it was the same person I had networked with. And so that was really quick and easy, and that's how I have my internship right now. But basically, by presenting myself in that way and taking the opportunity, it gets you far, and you don't even realize it in the moment, but it's worth investing in that.
And so the message again, yeah, sorry, Sophia.
But what I would say is, don't expect to have the first networking that you actually do, that you're being successful. It takes time. For me, for example, it took me about, it took 1.5 years more or less to actually understand what it's about. It's not just this goal seeking and hunting, but that you actually understand how you can leverage your network. I think this is also important, not that you're like, if you use it once and you say, oh, now I think I get the internship now because I networked with this one person. And no, don't expect this. You need to learn, and you need to wait, and at some point it will, you will succeed, but it takes time. Just that you're aware of this, and not that you have too high expectations and then you're super easily disappointed if it doesn't work the first time.
Yeah, maybe I was selling that a bit too much, but it's a true story. But I totally agree with Sophia. What I didn't say is that I had so many disappointments before that. So that's
Tell
one
us about
story
them, actually.
Oh, for sure.
We want to hear about those disappointments and those challenges that you met along the way.
Of course, yeah, because I'm very involved in the entrepreneurship scene, and of course, a lot of projects they are created, they're made, people are very excited for them, and you want to be a part of it. But sometimes, either for different circumstances, you can't. For example, like coronavirus, you can't. you couldn't have expected it, but I lost one internship because of that, even though I had a good network and I was sure that I could get a good position in the company, for example. Well, everything was paused and canceled. So I was like, oh, well, now I have to try and find something else. So that's one example. Another would be just simply not the connection not coming through, you know, or if I know like maybe one or two people who are involved in a project, but in the end you just don't get selected, or it just doesn't happen, and that's fine. And I still am connected to these people because I'm not purely there for just to see what I can get out of them. You know, if they ask me for favors too, or if they want to know how I am, etc., then of course, you know, I still am there for them and we connect. It's just sometimes you will be it's not sometimes, you will be disappointed at one point. You just have to pick yourself up and then continue, because long term, that's the strategy here.
Yeah, again,
So
it's a longer term strategy.
Sorry, so I actually had a question, that's my question, that many people might be asking themselves, which is, we've discussed being authentic and finding your own special, like when you're authentic, you already know what sets you apart from everyone else, and that makes you have a very different profile. And then we talk about what companies want or what people want that you're in touch with, right? In the networking process, and learning about them and knowing how to listen to them. So is there a strategy for students, for candidates, for the people right now to find out a little bit more about what is it that makes them them? Because I think for me, it was a problem for many years to find out like what is that I can bring to the table, or what makes me you know, what am I passionate about? Maybe that's not immediate, especially as a, you know, when you're younger. Is there a way for them to know a little bit more about themselves, or is there anything that they could do to you know, learn more, to know how to put themselves out there and create that connection? Thank you.
And that's a great point. Maybe I go first. So it's true that to have an effective, you know, networking strategy, and also to know who you want to talk to, right? And to target people that you want to approach, you need to know a little bit about yourself, and you need to know a little bit about who you are, and what are your values also. What is it that you could be sharing with those people that you want to approach? So it's a very good point that, you know, self-awareness, knowing yourself, is a very, very important milestone, I think, in this process of building a great network. Otherwise, you're going to go in every kind of direction, right? And to me, a high quality network is very diverse, but it's also made of people who somehow share, you know, your vision of the world, you know, share a little bit about, you know, your values. It doesn't mean working in the same sector. It doesn't mean, even the contrary, you want people from all kind of levels of seniority, you know, younger than you, older than you, and, you know, up to CEO, but also line managers, and also people who report to those line managers. You want your network to be very broad, also geographically, but there is this commonality that people need to have something in common with you, so you can connect, you know, and have those discussions and very interesting conversations, etc. So how can you know yourself? It's a big question. You know, I am a coach, and I am a coach for executives, and I work, you know, up to, you know, people who are partners at Deloitte and more, you know, and we're still asking ourselves those questions. Because really self-awareness and knowing ourselves is a continuous process, and it's a lifelong process. I think it's a never-ending process. But also, what is true is, like networking, the sooner you start it, the better off you will be. And I think it starts by understanding what is really important to you. And what is really important to you is actually your values, you know. And I would really start with that and understand, when I have to make decisions, how do I make my decisions, you know? Is it out of love? Is it because I want to learn? Is it because, you know, so those are your values, and understand what are your maybe top 5, let's say, values that define how you will act in a given situation. because you have choices to make. Do I go to a business school, or do I go to another kind of university? When I go to a business school, do I go to ESCP because I want to be super international, etc., etc., or do I go to another more local school? And when you make those decisions, you need to know yourself, because if your priority in life is just to be very, very close to your family, maybe that's not for you, or if you want to just be comfortable and not be challenged, and this is not the place for you somehow. So knowing that about you is going to be critical.
But what I also think what helps is if you do an internship, for example, or if you just ask other people what they think about you. For example, very often you get feedback, and if you just take this feedback, you learn a lot about yourself, because sometimes you're not even aware about things you bring to the table, but then other people tell you and what they value the most. So I think what Sophie said, it takes time, and also with time you get more feedback, and at some point you will always get the same feedback. I'm just talking about positive feedback now. And then you also realize a bit what actually am I for a person? Why do these people think that I'm super, I don't know, energetic or enthusiastic, or I'm hardworking? It depends. And I think this also helps a lot.
Yeah. Finding yourself is a process that will never end, I believe. So that's going to be something complicated to answer right now for you. But you for sure can do a lot of stuff to figure it out. And just to give an example, because unfortunately I have to leave soon, but to give you guys a concrete example of that is a long time ago, my first job was as a bartender. And I was not enjoying the work because I knew that it wasn't for me. I knew that the hours were too long for what I was being paid, for example, and I was working really hard, but then I didn't really enjoy my environment. And so at one point, even though I didn't know myself yet, I didn't even know if I was going to go to university or not, but I knew that this was not good for me. And so I figured that out. And what I did was I approached someone who I usually see in the gym. And this person, he runs a real estate company. And so just because I had interacted with him in the past in the gym, just a random location where you wouldn't expect, to get anything out of it. And I just took a leap of faith, and I found that I really didn't want to stay where I was. And I asked him, hey, do you have any available positions? Because right now I'm just not, the happiest person working where I am. And because he's seen me in the gym and we had just informal conversations all the time, he was more open to receiving, just to receiving my energy. And he said, I was very fortunate, I don't recommend this all the time, obviously, but I was very fortunate that he said yes, and he gave me that position. And from then on, I knew that I wanted to fight for myself in a way. So I wanted to give back to others. I wanted to have meaningful work, but at the same time, you also discover yourself through these things. So you need to know what's good for you as well. Totally what Sophie and Sophia just said. So yeah.
But again, having already some kind of connection with this person, no? Having exercised with him, having talked about your exercising routine, etc. You built something that was already authentic, at the time you were not looking for any kind of job, no? And then that prepared for that, probably he thought, I really like this guy. Oh, and he's very bold. And as recruiters, we love that. We love when people take the chance, and when people, and they leave their comfort zone, they try things out. This is a go-getter attitude that is very, very valued. And so good for you is what I want to say. And also, I think this is a perfect illustration that networking is everywhere. It's when you go to the gym, it's when you go to a restaurant, well, maybe not right now, but next to you, there's a table with people talking, you hear something and you just engage in conversations. I've met wonderful people sitting next to me, on planes and trains and any kind of transportation, and again, if you know a little bit about what's important to you and you connect with this person about that, those relationships are amazing, and they can convert in work relationships. They can convert in so many things, So to open up a little bit, and if you are an introvert, it doesn't mean that you cannot do this, absolutely not. The only thing that it means is that maybe you cannot spend your day doing it because you're going to be very, very tired, out of this. But it's an exercise to start doing it little by little. Okay, this person sitting next to me seems really nice. You know, the person sitting next to me at class, we're 100, but this person seems really nice. Why don't I go and talk to this person? Really genuinely trying to know who they are. And that's it. And the last point we wanted to make is about, you know, giving appreciation, making people feel valued. You know, you meet someone in whatever kind of event, you see that they have written a nice article, for example. It's nice to just say it and say, oh, really, I really liked your article. You know, I learned about this, this, and that. I so agree with you on this, but, you know, maybe, I don't know, I'd like to discuss more about that. How did, you know, that's going to make them feel, you know, terrific. And they're going to want to be around you and talk to you more. It's just, you know, basic human behavior and how we work. So yeah, that really, that's the basics. And again, in the line of making people feel valued, knowing their names is really where it starts, you know. And so calling people by their name, learning people, you know, learning their name from the moment you met them. And there are some little techniques, because we know it's very challenging, right? You have sometimes to juggle a bit your memory to make that happen. You talk to somebody and they come from a country with a completely different language, and it's a new first name you've never heard before. So in that case, you know, there's a trick, which is just to ask them to spell it for you. And that really shows interest, because I can assure you that most people will not go through, you know, this effort. And try to repeat this name 3 times during the conversation. And then there's a good chance that it's going to stick in your head, you know. And this is a trick that, you know, it's not a brand new thing. That was used by Napoleon III, you know. He was using this trick to remember people's name. He would even go through the hassle of writing their name on paper, even to throw it away later, just to, you know, help his memory. And a question I have to you guys is, you know, how many people do you know by name? Because you want to boost that number. You want to keep increasing that number, because that's going to be a network. And you know, at the end of the day, what you want to do is to increase the circle, you know, of people that you feel intimate with, you know, that you can have deep conversations with, that you can go and ask for any kind of recommendations or help or advice, you know, and you can do it naturally, you know. And so really move people from, you know, the moment you meet them where they're unfamiliar to this circle. If you appreciate them, obviously, you know, it has to be sincere, but to move them up to this circle where they become, you know, people that belong to your intimate circle, basically, to your meaningful circle. And sorry, yeah, again, there's a couple of books that we would like to recommend to you. And I know that Hugo and Sophia especially knew the one on the right. It's an amazing book, actually. Really highly recommended, and it focuses precisely on how to build connections, you know, with people, how to understand you know, how people work and what they expect and what they want in a conversation. And it's really going to change the way you approach, you know, talking to someone. And it's going to take away a lot of the fear, a lot of the stress that you experience when, you know, first talking to someone and trying to get something, you know, from someone.
And don't worry, it's like the book, if you have a look at it, it's super old actually. It's from 19 something, I don't remember actually. But don't worry, it's like everyone nowadays knows this book, especially in the business world. And it's still super important. So don't think like, okay, oh gosh, this is from 19 something. But the world changed so much. If you read the book, you will understand that it doesn't actually matter like when it was actually written.
Again, because it talks about basic human behaviors. It doesn't talk about doing business today, right? And humans, we have not changed over the centuries. We're just, again, what drives us to act, what motivates us, you know, it's still the same. So, but very good points. A very old book.
Yeah, but I would totally agree. It's still completely relevant. And the technique that you mentioned, Sophie, is something that everybody should really try and implement, which is getting the name 3 times and saying it out loud 3 times. Because honestly, that's a hugely important thing to get close to someone and really show more personal connection with them. And people love when you say that and you remember their names. good leaders remember the names of the people that they work with, for example. This makes a huge difference, honestly. So getting to know the people around you by name. I'm famously known for knowing the faces of people, but not their names. So this is something I'm working on right now, but it's honestly extremely relevant.
And what's your technique, Hugo, up to this point?
So right now, my technique has been, apart from getting as many business cards and LinkedIn's as I can, because then it's easy to scroll through.
Yeah.
I usually just write it down actually on my notes on my phone. As soon as I see the person, I memorize their name, look at the conversation, etc., and I start saying the name in my head. Now I have to repeat it in the conversation. That's what I'm practicing as well. And then as soon as I'm done with that, I write it immediately on my notes, and then I write a little something that I remember about that person, so that it's easier for me to identify them later on LinkedIn or just in the moment.
And the more you use your visual memory, your audio memory as well, auditive memory, and also, as you say, like use different kind of support, then it's gonna just stick. Of course.
I also use this in restaurants. If I go to a restaurant, for example, and very frequently, and I love it. And for example, we used to live in Madrid last year, and over there, restaurants get very crowded. But I knew the names of every single one of the bartenders and every single one of the waiters. And believe me, it helps when you get introduced that way. So when I would say, hey, hello, Felix, how are you, for example, then they would get you, for example, a space when there was none. Or it's just this extra touch that you give in everywhere in your life. It's going to help you.
Yes. I the same for me. I know the names of the cashiers at the supermarket downstairs. I know the names at where I buy my fruits and vegetables, every week. And they would always give me something extra for my little girl, like there is no exception. And we call each other by name. It's a real relationship. We check on each other, etc. So again, don't be like obsessed with, can this person be useful for my professional life? It's just, again, a very sincere approach of just connecting with people around you. And then those connections that will be helpful for your work, for your career, etc., they're going to come naturally. You're going to be able to select them naturally. But there's no, the field is endless, because this is pretty much anywhere that you go, and you can train on that. And again, you don't have much to lose, right? Because best case scenario, that's going to open a new amazing door, like the scenarios that Hugo discussed previously. That can absolutely happen, and that happens all the time. And worst case scenario, nothing happens. Don't have much to lose, because people forget very quickly. And even if you have a not so good conversation with someone, I swear, like they will have so much more on their mind, in the future. That's not gonna stick for so long. So, just start talking to people and understanding what they're about, and you'll see, all the new perspectives that this can happen. And that's it for me. That's pretty much what I wanted to share with you. And really thank you for your participation. I'm wondering if we have more questions. Maybe from our audience, so we can do a quick Q&A.
For now, we don't, but I encourage the audience to ask as many questions as they want. We still have 5 minutes left. And I wanted to make a small, a short comment meanwhile, because I didn't mention how all of this would not have been possible if we hadn't met through ESCP or through our common passions and interests, and putting in the time. And how I met you, Sophie, because we both are passionate about education, and that's something we have in common, and self-improvement and many other topics. And how for Hugo and Sophia, I also worked with them last year, and they were great. And we still kept in touch from time to time. And so I think that proves how important it is to establish these relationships that mean something to you, not just because they're useful, but because you have to try to reach out to people to make good things happen, and you cannot achieve that kind of collaboration otherwise, without taking some interest in what people really want to achieve, what they're doing, and and making it happen. So that was something that I wanted to say. Prejudice. I have a question. What about prejudice? Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, I have unfortunately duty calls, so I have to go.
I
will leave you guys.
Stuff, yeah.
Yes,
thank you so much, Hugo. It was a pleasure having you here.
Thank you for having me, absolutely.
And thank you.
And it was an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thank
you so much for your tips. Okay,
bye.
have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So we're going to continue with the question, what about prejudice?
Yeah.
I think Maria is asking a question about prejudice in terms of networking or internships,
Yes.
I guess.
Well, my answer on this is going to be very straightforward. Do
Yes,
you want
both.
to work with somebody who has prejudices? Because I don't. And, I want to work, in environments where people are open-minded, they're curious, they want to learn about others. And if it's not the case, I'm just not interested to work with those people. And I hope that for all of you on this call, you have the same approach, because really you need to have some standards in the people that you meet, in the environments that you're going to be working for. And if those, it's a theme of values. If those people don't share your values, then let's not get there, because you're going to be miserable. I don't know if that answered your question.
Yes. Do you have more questions, Maria? Because she said yes, both in internships and like, first impressions and everything. I guess it's a waste of energy. As we were saying, there's so many elements that come into play when you meet people, and you have to be careful where you direct your energy and what matters to you, because we only have, we can have boundless energy like Sophia. Sophia, remember I always told you we're so energetic, and you are so energetic. So, but which is great. But for most of us, I think we also have to be wise in choosing a little bit more. Well, in my case, so learn what's important and invest in that, and get in touch with people who actually, appreciate
invest
that.
in relationships that with the right people.
Absolutely, right. So
You can be picky. You're going to be joining one of the best schools out there. You can absolutely choose your people. Life is going to be full of opportunities.
How was this is another question. How was your experience at ESCP? Did anyone did the Le Programme Grande École? This is more of a school related question.
I did. I did
You
the
did?
master in management. Yes.
Okay.
So I did the Programme Grande École. Amazing experience. What can I say? For me, that really opened my world. I really cherish those memories of studying in campuses abroad. I still have like very, very dear friends from that period. And as a matter of fact, one of them called me 2 days ago to tell me that he's moving to Madrid with his family.
Oh.
And I'm so excited. But yeah, truly, like the quality of the people I've met, the friendship I made. I'm still involved with the school today as much as I can, because as a way to give back, because I received so much. So I would say tremendous. How about you, Sophia? I think we cannot hear you.
No, like same. No.
There's like a slight
my
interruption.
microphone's on. I hope so. So basically, the program.
What are the best? Sorry. Yeah, I can't hear you right. And this is the last question, because it's almost a minute to the hour. What are the best networking experiences for students when studying at ESCP? And with that, we're going to close the question section. Thank you.
So I would say like events with the school, organized at the school, are already the first step, where you're gonna meet professionals, alumni, etc. So start with that, because it's a safe environment where you can just rehearse your skills and maybe you work on your little presentation pitch, but mostly you work on your listening skills. I hope that you have understood that from today. So that is the first step, like really be involved in what's happening with the school. And then, so basically, again, it's about knowing a little bit about who you are and what you start to be interested in. Maybe you've not discovered your life passion yet, and that's perfectly fine, because again, this is an exploration that you're going to keep doing during your whole life, and you can pursue multiple passions. But once you find something that you're interested in, start researching people. And LinkedIn, of course, is a very easy tool to do so, because you can approach people and talk about your interest, and ask them for a quick call. And I would say that you will be amazed by the reception of that. When people approach me and they tell me that they want to talk about entrepreneurship, or like things that we share, I'm very, very excited to hop on a quick call with them. And a lot of professionals will do the same. So yeah, LinkedIn and the school is like a great way to start. And then you will be doing internships, and I think Sophia will have a lot to say about that too. No, we talked a
Yes,
few
like,
days ago.
no, in general, I would say, especially in London, I don't know whether you're planning to go to the London campus, but there are loads of events, especially as in London, all the big companies are, and you should go to every single event that you can actually take. I did most of the networking, even though it was my first year. And as I told you before, I wasn't actually sure what networking was. I didn't know how to present myself, but it's just you learn by doing. So if you have the chance to actually go to any event, go and just try it out. Ask other people about themselves, and maybe you're lucky and you actually get something out of it. And if not, then you just practice until you actually find the person. And yes, so for example, in ECP, I think you should always take all the events possible, especially in London, because you have their LSE. Other unis actually offer also networking events, and you should go there because you meet a different kind of people there, and they're super nice and super inspiring. Like in London, actually, I don't know about Paris because I haven't been to Paris, but in London, out of all the 3 years that I spent at ECP, I had most of the events there, and I went to every single one.
Roxana, I think you're on mute.
You're right. Thank you for pointing it out. Okay, so I think we're going to close our session for today. Thank you to all of you for participating, being here, having the curiosity to learn more and learn from the experience of experts and our students. And I think that the big takeaway is to nurture your relationships, because it comes from the personal, and the people we are comes the professional as well. And knowing who you are and your values is what will set you on the right path. So thank you, everyone. And I hope you have a lovely rest of the week.
Thank you very much.
Thank you too.
Thank you.
Bye.